Hi, good morning. Assalamualaikum. This is about the different ways that progress can be shown on your home education report to the local authority. There are several ways. The easiest way that I find is keeping a portfolio. So this is where you keep just a ring binder of pieces of work that your child is particularly proud of. So it shows obviously your starting, and then it shows your current. If you do not, because you have the option of not sending copies of your child's work, and that's up to your child depending on their age and their creative control. So if you start at your starting point, you have a current. What I tend to do is then write a running record. So sort of like marking, but more of a sense of, more like a commentary of all of the things that they've done, how they feel about it. And you could also ask your child, depending on their age, your child's review, how they felt about that piece of work, how they felt about that particular element. And what we're trying to do here with all of this showing progress is demonstrate growth. Even if the growth is very minuscule, for those children who may struggle with the subject, or they may have additional learning needs. Demonstrating any amount of growth or development over time is what you're looking for. So you're looking for development. You don't want your child to be stagnant. That's what you're trying to show that they're not, because this is what the local authority is looking for in terms of what's going on with them. You have the second option of using a curriculum that has its own standardized testing. And standardized testing comes in many forms. You could outsource this. So if you outsource, you've got the option of using things in the UK that are already in place. So you've got past SAT papers, and you could do that at a centre. So it's not necessarily parent-based. You could also, at a certain point, have your child do the 11+ exam. From there is something called the 13-14+. So that's a mid-key stage 3 review. And then obviously we have a GCSE. They could sit an A-level or 2, depending on age and ability. So those are the ideas. But you could also go down the idea of just having a checklist of milestones. The first time they're able to write their name unassisted, or the ability to write a critical essay by themselves. And this is where you track their progress. And then also what you would do, usually in our house, we celebrate the achievement just to make them feel better about themselves, foster healthy self-esteem. So we celebrate achievements. This can also be used for the idea of their extracurricular activities, things like Quran, dance, drama, running, BMXing, forest school. All of those minor or major achievements, note them all down, and you could have your child a review. So you could have a review by your child. We also do something which is keeping a learning journal. This is more child-focused. So keeping a learning journal means that you have the ability to then document this is mainly about your child, and this is your child's insight. So what they liked about a topic, what they didn't. You could actually do this as the idea of a traffic light system. What did they like about building the space mobile? What did they not? What did they think about having to memorize the hydrocarbon series? What did they notice about them? So this is the things that your child makes in terms of connections to their work. When you've got something like a learning journal, you can also say that this is cross-curricular. So it could be how their science links to their maths, how their maths links to their understanding, whether they're comprehending a topic or not comprehending, whether they've asked you, if your child is that sort of child, asked you to, could we approach this at a later date? We could also do things like presentations. And we usually call these freedom projects, where your child will go about and just find something that's very passionate to them. And this is for them to show their creative side with very minimal input. So they have to go and research. So this shows things like the development of research skills, but also communication. You could opt to do this via a company, such as something that offers the Lambda course. So this could be something around the idea of Lambda or Stagecoach or any other drama facility. But then also with that presentation skills, you have to work on the idea of clear communication and that presentation skill. So that's a very skills-based sort of projection of you being able to demonstrate that your child is having a well-rounded education. We've also got the idea of trips and experiences. So with your trips and experiences, obviously, this is not, we're looking at learning experience that are not based solely on textbooks. Textbook learning is not what home education is all about. So you've got to think about trips to the field or to a site. If they're going to do bird watching, for instance, referencing it to a book, museum visits and workshops, especially if that ties in with a topic that you are studying. We've got the idea of nature walks. What do they see? What do they not see? You could make your own worksheets. You could use the 1,000 Hours Outside. You could also go down the route of your child using the RSPB books that provide all of that, and then all sorts of hands-on activities. And I've had the question before, so then when it comes to my report, how do I reference this? You can reference this through photos. And the photograph sort of has a small sort of like summary of what they were trying to achieve or what was the purpose of the visit. Could have been just collecting their 1,000 hours outside. If your child has a tutor, for instance, you could have a tutor paragraph. So your tutor could be referenced if they are willing to, and write something about their external needs. So they will talk to you about your child's learning experiences. And if your child is working online or even in a classroom, take a moment to say to teacher, I would like to sit in on a lesson so that you know what's going on and you're not just going through the motions of saying, okay, fine, I'm going to put them into this lesson and not necessarily checking on them. Because this shows areas where they excel and areas where they need additional support. And if they require additional support, put that additional support in place. Find it. When you're showing progress, if they're moving steadily through, say, something like an online platform, some learning online platforms will give you the child's average reading age. So you can show or demonstrate that they are reading at where is expected. And if not, and they're excelling across that, great. But if they're not, also showing that it's taking some time and we're putting some things in place to make sure that that's not a problem. Because what online platforms do, they have a self-monitoring. So with self-monitoring, you can actually check the background of login, times and dates, and how much work was completed. Many have schemes of work that they are running through. If you do consider to hire a one-to-one tutor, what you've actually got here is they act like an education consultant. And if they're acting like an educational consultant, what you need to do is check with them periodically for a progress report. If they say to you, okay, fine, your child is overthinking things, so we're going to slow this down a bit so that we're not necessarily moving at the pace that you would expect, but you are expecting that your child grows in a level of confidence, that is not necessarily a bad thing. And then finally and foremost, we can look at the presentation of life skills. Because that's not, it can be academic, but it's also not considered academic as far as your report is concerned. We know that it is. So we've got life skills documentation. We're looking at things like socialization and social skills. If your child left school with a level of anxiety about education, what are you doing to combat that? And how much progress have they necessarily made? And if they haven't, and they're working with a coach, for instance, or they're working with CAMS, child and adolescent mental health services, say that. And if you are waiting on a CAMS review, which I know a lot of people are, we're looking at finding something to fill that gap while we are there. If you are able to afford it, there's an element of you going private and paying privately for a educational consultant or an educational psychologist. Sorry, my mind went blank for a bit. For them to be able to help. If this was useful to you, let us know. Obviously, you can screenshot whatever you need to, take it down, make sure you understand what's going on. And if you don't, put a comment in and I will get back to you as soon as possible. So this is Dr. Rachel Lewis signing out. Assalamu alaikum.